We've all heard that silence is golden, but its effect can greatly vary depending on the circumstances. After all, we're also familiar with the notion of complicit silence within the bystander movement. So then, when is silence admissible at trial? The 1990 case of Wilson versus Clancy explores this very question. Dr. Hurney had been friends for a long time with Beverly Wilson. In 1968, Hurney and his attorney, Joseph Clancy, prepared wills for the doctor and his wife. The wills distributed the couple's joint property equally amongst 8 people, including Wilson. Later, in 1987, Dr. Hurney had Clancy draft a new will whereby Dr. Hurney's sole residual estate was to be divided in 2 equal parts between Wilson and one of Dr. Hurney's relatives. Clancy claimed he told Dr. Hurney that the property would need to be transferred from joint ownership to his sole name for the new will to take effect. However, Dr. Hurney never retitled the property, and it continued to be held jointly with his wife, both with rights of survivorship. As such, when Dr. Hurney died before his wife, no property was in his sole name, and the assets all became owned by Mrs. Hurney upon his death. When Mrs. Hurney later died, Wilson received 1/8 of the estate in accordance with the 1968 will. This was about $220,000 less than she would have received if the assets were in Dr. Hurney's name and divided equally between her and the other individual, as contemplated by the 1987 will. Wilson brought a diversity suit in district court against Clancy for malpractice, alleging that he negligently defeated Dr. Hurney's intentions to bequeath half of his sole estate to her. Clancy moved for summary judgment. In opposition to the motion, Wilson sought to admit an affidavit from Dr. Hurney's bookkeeper, stating that neither Clancy nor Dr. Hurney ever mentioned to her that the doctor's assets needed to be retitled for the 1987 will to take effect. Wilson contended that such evidence supported the inference that Clancy never instructed the doctor about retitling his assets, and that such an inference created a triable issue of fact, thereby defeating Clancy's summary judgment motion.